That glimmering sound, that it sounds so ever so fresh even now, even though the drums are kind of little small drums, and you know, it just sounds sparkling and fresh.
The model is the band at their briefest, a 3-minute pop song, but there's also the lengthy, dreamy electronica on Neon Lights, as covered by U2.
Neon lights, shimmering neon lights, and at the fall of night, this city's made of light. Neon lights.
Neon Lights also served as an inspiration for Hot Chip, whose single Colours serves as something of an homage. Hot Chip's Alexis Taylor.
But Neon Lights, I think, is just a very simple pop statement that makes me feel incredibly kind of warm when I listen to it, and I think that is something that I've wanted to kind of, I've been inspired by that track to write our song Colours, and want to make something that feels so simple and so direct, so kind of bright and human at the same time as using soft synth sounds and things.
I'm Alex Kapranos on Radio 1, and this is the story of Kraftwerk, the men who shaped the sound of pop music today. There is no doubting the theme of the concept album Computer World, released in 1981. The track listing goes something like this: Computer World, Pocket Calculator, Numbers, Computer World 2, Computer Love, Home Computer, and then the final track, It's More Fun to Compute. Al and Alexis from Hot Chip.
That particular album is such a great one because of the way it sort of guides you through as an album, and sort of just for the way they float from song to song, and it doesn't feel like a strained kind of concept album in the same way that like Dark Side of the Moon, it just doesn't seem to stand the test of time for me personally. But
it's quite laboured, isn't it, really?
But something like Computer World is still kind of stands up, I think, as a whole sort of document. There's not really any note that doesn't really ring true on that album.
Numbers, with its turbocharged beat, was the second Kraftwerk track used in Africa Bambaata's Planet Rock, and has been heavily sampled since the early days of electro. The highlight of the record is the bittersweet, unrequited electronic passion of the song Computer Love. The delicate, emotional melody reappeared recently in the Coldplay song Talk. Chris Martin wrote a letter in his best GCSE German to Ralph Hutter asking his permission to use it. Hutter said yeah.
Yeah, it made me smile. That really, really made me smile.
Underworld's Carl Hyde.
The hand of Kraftwerk reaching out into the public domain. That's fantastic. And fair play to Coldplay for bringing that kind of humour into their music.
By the early 80s, productivity was slowing down, but the less they did, the more music around them began to sound like them. And the more bands began to look like them as well. The Young Knives.
It's like the antithesis of rock and roll, isn't it? And they looked dead normal, and then they were doing all these kind of like weird things inspired by sexual dreams and making boxes that make mechanical noises and stuff like that, and it's just bleeps and clicks and words, and they deliver the vocals in the same way, almost sort of as straight as possible. There's things that you hear that sound like that, like the way that Ian Curtis sang sometimes, and Iggy Pop on The Idiot. There's things like that, and I don't think those things would have come about if it weren't for Kraftwerk.
Gary Newman, Visage, Human League and New Order took the synth elements to new commercial heights. Depeche Mode also used the Kraftwerk philosophy of unconventional instruments, drumming on sheets of metal, for example, on 1984 hit Master and Servant. Because Depeche Mode are icons to acts like Marilyn Manson and Lacuna Coil, it means that heavy metal is another of the many genres touched by Kraftwerk. But it's house, electronica, techno and hip-hop that owe the greatest debt to the world's most sampled band. But how did four white, middle-class German academics with a passion for cycling inspire black urban New York? Carl Hyde.
Oh, there's some serious funk. I remember we became friends with Karl Bartos some years ago, and he was telling me when they first played at the Apollo in uptown New York, and how I don't think there was any white faces in the audience at all, you know, which really connected with them, that they'd made this music that was seriously crossover. And when you listen to Computer World, that is such a funky album. The spaces that they leave, what they don't play, is so it's funk, really. It's machine funk.
There was more to it than that, though. Hot Chip's Al Doyle.
Well, I mean, sampling wise, it always helps if your beat is locked. You know, if you've got like a sort of human drummer, then that's not going to be in time. And this is before we could like take music and like put it into time, even if it wasn't sort of recorded, you know, to a constant BPM. But so that helps, and also just repeated riffs and you know, just massive sort of synthetic sounds, I think, that you know, work really well with. I think their music doesn't get swamped by beats, basically. Like, you know, even if you've got like a sort of heavy hip hop beat or something, it still kind of seems to sit on top really nicely, and that's probably one of the reasons why it appealed.
British dance acts have always been open about the heavy influence of Kraftwerk, from Fatboy Slim to the Aphex Twin, KLF to the Klaxons, and the subtle tribute from the Chemical Brothers to Om Sweet Om in their track Leave Home.
The brother's gonna work it out. The brother's gonna work it out. The brother's gonna work it out. The brother's gonna work it out.
The lack of productivity and increasingly tense relationships led to Karl Bartos and Wolfgang Flür leaving Kraftwerk, eventually to be replaced by Fritz Hilpert and Henning Schmidt. Bartos continued to